Hey. Let me get my hat straight. I can't make sure I can see everything. Hey, this is Willie Cartwright with from Save to Sane. Glad to have you here today. Exciting, interesting. I've had a great day today. Um, those of you out there who are joining us live, I certainly appreciate that. We appreciate that. Those of you who will hear this at a later date, a later time, who are, get the playback or whatever, certainly appreciate this. Appreciate that. I'm sorry. Those of you who are joining us here on the West Coast, again, I'm in Vegas, in the Vegas area. Those of us where it's 4 o'clock our time, and then those of you going back to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 7 o'clock on the East Coast time, which used to be my domain. Those of you on the East Coast and down south, certainly, at least part of the South, certainly appreciate you all joining us at this time. So glad to have everyone here today. Interesting topic, and then I wanted to sort of add on to it because of something that just happened today. And so we'll talk about that in just a second. But as always, I want to begin by saying thank you to a couple of people. Uh, um, Taisha, I'm sorry, Taisha X6. She's out there somewhere in space. Thank her for everything that she's done. She's the one that kind of got me going with this thing and helped me along the way. So I always say thank you to her, and I will always do that. And certainly, last but certainly not least, my wonderful wife, who is 100% supportive of the things I do in this space, as I am of her and the things that she do in her space. Guys, it is really this is sort of a side note. It is really wonderful, exhilarating, exciting when you find your tribe, when you find your space, when you find your place. My wife and I both grew up, as I would say most African Americans did in Generation X. Things were not always the best. We didn't always have everything that we needed. Certainly for me, but my wife and I, we've made the best of it, and we both have tried to do the right thing. We've been married 20 years now, faithfully married 20 years. And when we moved from Atlanta, people had a lot of questions as to why you moved from Atlanta. I know a lot of African Americans who think that Atlanta is Wakanda, and for a lot of people, it is. And for me, it certainly was early on when I first moved there. But we evolved, we changed, and I'm not saying that in a negative way toward Atlanta. Um, but we also understood some things about ourselves, and that is relevant as I evolve into what I'm doing with this space. We found out some things about ourselves, and so we set out on a quest, and so we ended here. We had no idea where here was, being in Henderson, which is just outside of Vegas. We had been to Vegas, hated it. Um, but to make a long story short, now that we're here, we've been here 2 years now. We found our place, we found our tribe, we found our people. I've never seen my wife happier. I've never been happier, and so I just sort of wanted to add that for people, just sort of a side note. And what I've been saying lately is that this program, this channel, will expand. We will always talk about religion on this channel, but I wanted to expand because religion touches other aspects of our lives. There are direct connections between religion and some other things, and there are indirect connections from religion to other things. One of the things that I look to do, hope to do with this channel, and maybe another channel as well, I'm still trying to decide whether to mix the two, is to talk about how deconverting in the process has now allowed me to live what I believe is my authentic life. And how those things, it might not necessarily be religion for you, but challenging those fundamental things in your life that you've never been able to challenge before for whatever the reason, and understanding that when you challenge those things, it open up the space for you to challenge other areas in your life. And so deconverting was one of the absolute best things that I've ever done in my life. I believe that it is responsible for us being here, for us enjoying this element in our life. And so from time to time, I will insert and talk about those things, especially from a standpoint of being Generation X. I've talked about this before on this program, how many of my peers, many of the people in my generation are just flat out exhausted. Um, and we're we tried to do all the things that our parents and society told us to do: get the degrees, go to school, work the job, climb the corporate ladders, and now we find ourselves in this stage of our life with pressures. Many of us with pressures on both sides, and those pressures being one being having to take care of kids. Many of us have kids in college. Many of you have kids in college. Um, on the other end, you're taking care of your parents, and so my wife and I, we've been through that as well. And so we understand at least part of that. And so when you add kids to that, or when you have kids and you add parents to that mix, it is really exhausting for a lot of us. And so what I found out is that many of us uh, was doing what we thought was right, but really was not doing or not pursuing the things that really made us happy, which also includes working ourselves to death, and so forth and so on. And so I'm going to incorporate some of that because I'm telling you, deconverting for me was the key that unlocked the door. For you, it may be some other things. For you, it may be deconverting, it may be questioning your faith, all of that, because I believe that all of this is part of a system, and challenging certain things within the system is the key to breaking out of this system. And so look for me to talk more about those things in relationship, whether it be directly or indirectly, um, to what we do on this channel primarily, which is talk about religion and all of that. So I wanted to broaden it. I wanted to make it more expansive. I wanted to invite more people under the tent and sort of expand it out. With that being said, I talked to you guys the last time I was on, and many of you who've been following me for the years, and for that, I certainly appreciate it. I mentioned that as normal, I usually go into a summer hiatus where I'm gone for a couple of months, and then I come back in August. And I told you guys 2 weeks ago, last time we spoke, that I was going to, my intentions were to do the same this year. Well, those intentions have changed. And so I plan to be here during the summer, doing these podcasts. I don't know if I'll do it every other week, but certainly I will be here during the summer. And so I won't take the 2 month or 2.5 month hiatus, but we will be doing some traveling. And so we'll fix the times, but I will be here. Reason for that is that, and again, I've said this, and so I'm following through. I am making this podcast and some other things that I'm doing part of what I do as my vocation from this point out. And so I really look to grow this channel, eventually get some sponsorships and do some things financially. I'm not trying to become a millionaire. If it happens, it happens, but I'm not trying to do all of that. But I do want to sort of monetize this channel at some point and sort of get the word out more. And so all of that goes hand in hand. And so I wanted to tell you guys that look for me to be here during the summer, doing more of these podcasts, because it is pretty much what I'm going to be doing, this and a couple other things. I have some other stuff on the back burner that I'm going to be working on that's completely separate from this, sort of to finance this until we get this to a certain point. But this is what I hope to do for an extended period of time, at some point being the only thing. Working on another channel, but has absolutely nothing to do with this. Is more for fun, and not that this is not fun, but this is more of a serious thing. I'm going to do some other stuff on another podcast, which is strictly fun. It's something that I truly enjoy. But again, I enjoy this. So enough of that. We got some people on here that said hello, hello. What's this? Michael Shea, Michael Lachey, 9714. Good to see you again. When can I tune in live? I'm the ex-NOI brother from Cincinnati. Oh yeah, we got to get you on here. We had talked about that. Yeah, let's talk about that. Send me an email. I'll put my email in here in the chat later. But yeah, we have to talk about that. Sharon, what's going on? Good to see you. I am recovering from surgery. So sorry I missed the last one. Tell your wife hello and hope to chat soon. Absolutely. Sharon, we hope that you're doing well, recovering from your surgery. I hope that all is well, but we're glad to have you, glad to see you. Amanda, glad to have you. Amanda NBS, good evening to all of you. So we are excited, we are excited. Hopefully you can tell it in my voice. Really quick, I want to always promote my book, this book here, which is From Saved to Sane, My Journey Away from Christianity and Why Christianity Has Been Detrimental to the African American Community. You can get this on Amazon, or you can hit me up and we will send you a copy, a signed copy, once we get all of your information. Next, back to sort of what I was talking about earlier, my next book, which I'm working on now, is going to be a combination of religion and combination of finding your authentic self, and how deconverting for me helped me, and how it can help you, or some other things. Basically how questioning your religion, your faith, can open the door for you to live a much better, happier, more fulfilled, more authentic life, as it did for me. And so that's what the next book is sort of centered around. And so we will do that. Sharon, thank you so much. Sharon said the book was great. I certainly appreciate that. Thank you so much. So y'all pick up the book. Let's get to it, because I've been talking about everything else. So where are we? Oh yeah. So how did we get to this topic? And what's the other topic I want to add to it? So toward the end, I want to talk about as well, and there's an indirect connection to this. Those of you who sort of keep up with the news, especially in our community, with everything that is going on in the South, and I'm going to do my best not to bash the South, because I am a son of the South. I was born and raised in Alabama, spent almost 30 years in Atlanta, spent a couple of years in Tennessee. So I am a son of the South, and I will never forget that. And there are a lot of things that I learned. It helped to make me who I am now, the good, bad, and the indifference. But here's what we know for a fact, and here's what we all know for sure now, is that the South is still the South. Now, I am not saying that things are different. I mean, I'm not saying that things are so much better in other parts of the country, but there are levels to this. And I use this analogy all the time. When I talk about the South, and people who are in the South, born and raised in the South, or live in the South, they may get offended by the things I say. I said there are a lot of truths to what people outside of the South think about the South. And what we've seen lately with the redrawing of maps to sort of wipe out representation for African Americans in Congress, whether it's the state congressional seats, or federal national seats. We're seeing the South be the South. And so, with that being said, again, where the point that I want to make about this is that although I live out west, I am not blindly to say that there is not racism and some of those things that you see out west that you see in the South. But the South is a whole different creature, whole different animal. And I use this story or this point all the time with people. I say, if you've never been to the South, especially if you're African American and you've never been to the South, the first thing that you hear about going to the South, or what people will warn you about and talk to you about, is, listen, it's the South. There's racism. There's racism here and there. There's this kind of thing going on. There's the sundown towns, this, that, whatever. So the first thing you hear about most of the time, if you've never lived in the South and you're going to the South, is be careful where you go, be careful what you do, stay in the major cities, blah, blah, blah. You don't hear that as much when you're talking about other parts of the country. I never hear anybody say, well, I'm going to Chicago. They talk about all the other things. They might talk about how cold Chicago is. They might talk about the number of people. They might talk about the crime. And then eventually they might get to, well, there's some racism. There's some pockets of racism. Out west, Portland, California. Again, you don't hear that. And so that's the different levels that I'm talking about. Racism is ingrained in who the South is and who the South has always been. And so, with that being said, those of you who are following the news about the redrawing of the district maps, the NAACP now has come out and said that they would like for college athletes, Black college athletes, to not attend these state universities, these large PWIs, as we call them, predominantly white institutions, like the University of Alabama, University of Tennessee, Auburn, University of Georgia, Florida State, South Carolina, North Carolina, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Kentucky, all those schools, right? In an effort to hurt the pockets of these universities, so to make them sort of say, okay, maybe we're going too far with these redrawing of these these districts. And so I want to talk about that toward the tail end of this because I posted something, and I'm not sure if all of you will agree. I'm sure some of you won't agree, but we'll get to that. And then I'll also tell you how this is connected to religion. Again, we're broadening the things that we talk about here on this show. So let's get to the topic finally. Why are people still believers? And so I thought about this. I don't know where it came from. It just hit me, and I was like, "Wow, why are people?" And I think the first question, and then I wanted to broaden it, but the first question was, "Why are people still going to church?" And so when I was growing up, and again, I'm from the South, so Sunday morning, every car was gone, everybody was in church, so everybody attended church. Now, I live in a large apartment complex, really nice complex, um, and I see a lot of cars still in the parking lots, and we have garages too in the garages as well on Sunday. And even before I moved here, I saw the same thing in Atlanta in my townhome community. Saw people, cars were still out there and they were not in church. And so you hear this thing about um, younger people are turning back to the church and attending church. Well, let's address that issue first. It is true that in this country, uh, many of the young people are, and that's when we say young people, we're talking millennial and younger, are starting to go to church again. However, this is really specific to conservative people, people who lean more right, and particularly conservative men. I haven't seen the research that says why this is the case, but this has been going on since after COVID. What we see, and what we see from secularism as before COVID, this country has started moving in the direction of becoming a more secular country. Trust me, I know we're not going to ever get to where we are a majority secular country, at least not in my lifetime. However, we had started becoming more secular, and so those numbers have not dropped; they've just sort of flatlined. And so the same numbers that we had a few years ago as to what this country looked like from a secularization standpoint or being secular, those numbers are still pretty much the same. What you do have is more conservative leaning people, and particularly men, who are going back to church for whatever the reason. If you look at the numbers worldwide, on a worldwide basis, people are going to church a lot less. They are a lot less religious from the world standpoint. And so, what it looks to me now. So if you think about this, uh, the countries that you're going to see that are going to be mostly religious or majority religious are going to be those sort of most of them are sort of going to be sort of third world countries or countries that are always embroiled in some kind of political issue or some war issues. The more advanced countries like China, more of the Japan, more of the peaceful countries like the Netherlands and Denmark and Sweden and Switzerland. Again, those are also some of the more advanced countries. Countries like Singapore, those countries will tend to be less religious, less focused on their faith, and so I don't know that should tell you something. I think with religious with conservatives in this country turning back to religion more so, it's sort of turning back our progress, and we really see what it's doing with this administration and how they are putting Christianity on the forefront, basically condemning anyone who is not Christian or who don't assimilate to what they see as Christian values. And it's ironic in this country that we literally, I mean, this is a microcosm of what we have in this country. Religion, Christianity in this country is split. You have conservative white people who practice Christianity one way and who believe and follow certain traits, some characteristics of their faith this way. And you have African Americans who practice Christianity another way. And I will say this to my brothers and sisters who are still Christians. I think that most of you are absolutely right in how you practice your faith. Leaving aside uh, the validity of the faith and the character, God, Jesus, or whatever. But what if we take it from the standpoint of what is faith supposed to teach us, and what is it teaching us about how to treat others? I think African Americans, for the most part, are sort of living that the best way they can. The problem is that many on the right have co-opted Christianity and turned it into, and this is not recent, they've always done this, and turned it into a weapon and weaponize religion and Christianity, much like they did back during the enslavement of our ancestors. They did the same thing, but it is in a more sophisticated way. And unfortunately, some of our people are being caught up in it and not able to get out of it. So the question is, so with technology, with the internet, with world traveling, with the things that we see with this current administration, um, why are people still believers? Why? And especially why are marginalized people still religious? Because it seems to me that the only people who are winning with this faith and this religion are heterosexual white men. So if you are a woman, if you are a person of color, if you are part of the LGBTQ community, why are you still a Christian? If same thing with if you're a Muslim, why are you still a Muslim? Why are you still part of the Islamic faith? Is it simply because you have a fear of going to hell or a desire to go to heaven? Some question. We have Satan's little helper. Wishing you a speedy recovery, Sharon. Yeah, absolutely. We all are. So hopefully you're getting better. Sharon said, "Thank you. I'm hoping it speeds a little faster. I can't take sit still." Yeah, yeah. I get you with that. Sharon also said, "Churches is just another version of the club. The music, the cliques, the clothes. Some preachers are no longer teaching morality." Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a large part of it. I have a note here that says, and this is the last thing I want to talk about, but I'll jump down to it since Sharon mentioned it. There's a social aspect. There's a social element to going to church and worshiping. It's on one hand, it's the music. You feel good. On the other side is this is where all your friends are. If you have kids, this is sort of a safe space. This is generally speaking, this is sort of a safe space where your kids can go and they can hang out with their friends. You can run into people from the community that otherwise you probably don't have time to see. So there is a social element to it, Sharon. Absolutely. There is also, like I said, the music, the feel good, the pastor telling you what you want to hear. We talk about people like Joel Osteen, who is nothing but a motivational preacher on a pulpit. And so people get that. A lot of the bigger mega churches, this is really what it's come down to. Before I left the faith, I had attended a lot of these newer mega churches. A lot of them had the same setup, the same music setup, the same songs, all the kind of, and it was all in an effort to draw in a certain type of people, make you feel good, and at the end of the day, to pay them tithes. So we did that. Saint said, good. Okay, Saint said, you lose your entire community when you stop believing. That is a very valid point, Saint's little helper. Um, and that is a powerful point. Because I went through it, and so I always tell my story from 2015, how I literally lost friends that I had been friends with, had been knowing for the better part of 20, 30, 40 years, or even more, even longer. Some people I had literally grown up with since I was 2 years old. Then I was, my mother, who was devoutly religious. She was a minister at the time, and I've told the story of how she said a bunch of really horrible things about my wife and I when she found out. She didn't say it to me. She said it to my sister, because that was my mother sort of revered me for almost everything, even though she was really, really strict and brutal when I was a kid. She sort of revered me for a lot of things, and she would come to me for advice and that kind of stuff. So certain things she wouldn't necessarily challenge me about certain things, but she said it to my sister. My sister told me. And so that was hurtful, but it was not unexpected. Um, and then because I knew my mother and how she was, most of the things that she did or said sort of went over my head or bounced off my shoulder because that's just who she were. And 50 years, well, at the time, 45 years or whatever, I had already, nothing surprised me. Now, my wife, on the other hand, my wife was taken aback. She was very upset with the things that my mother had said about us because we had chosen to deconvert. And so yeah, so you get that. Um, it's funny, and I have, and I've said this before. I have friends who, first started going public on social media, Facebook was the first place because that's where all those old people hang out. Uh, so I had the vast majority of the people were like, "I can't believe you've done this. You can't believe you're saying this. What are you doing?" Blah blah blah. But surprisingly, there were people who would DM me, or if they saw me in public, they would say, "Listen, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm glad that you said something about it." And I've said this before too, but many of them said I can't publicly support that for the same reasons, say little helper as you said, because they didn't want to be ostracized. They didn't want to lose their community. Some of them didn't want to lose jobs. And I have friends who work for the church or work for religious organizations who are not believers, but they still work for these organizations because they absolutely have to in order to make a living, and that's sad. Um, so again, I just, as I talked about earlier about expanding this and being more broad with what we talk about, uh, those of us who were Christians and those of us who found the courage to leave, at least for me, it has been fantastic. I feel like that I'm living who I really am, and for the Christians out there, they may hear this. This is not about wanting to sin. I would put everything I have on me and a lot of the atheists or non-believers that I know from the standpoint of morality versus many of the Christians that I know. And I would tell you that most, if not all, of the non-believers, atheists, agnostics that I know are way more moral, have a higher moral conviction than many of the Christians that I know. And so it is never about, for me at least, it's never about wanting to do. It is about doing what I want to do, but I'm doing what I want to do. So I don't want to commit bad acts because I don't like the word sin. I just had a whole long argument with somebody on Threads about sin not existing and being a creation of the Abrahamic faith. There are we engage in actions, and some of those actions are harmful, and then there are consequences and reactions to those actions, those actions that we do. So sin is a religious tainted creation, and so I don't use the word sin. So it's not about me doing what I want to do from the standpoint of harming or hurting anybody. And then I'll also say this: if you need a Bible or belief in a divine overseer in order for you not to do harmful things, then you're not a good person to begin with. I don't do those things because I'm a good person. The people that I know and surround myself with don't do those things because they're a good person, not because they're afraid of God or worried about what the Bible said or in fear of going to hell. We're just good people. And we are humans, and we believe in humanity toward showing humanity toward other people, being empathetic and sympathetic to people who are less fortunate or doing worse, and helping those who we can help. I don't understand why that's such a big. I mean, that's such a there's so much conflict there with believers. I don't need a God to tell me that. And from a physiological standpoint, from an evolutionary standpoint, we evolved as a human society to that. We understood early on that doing things that harmed others in our community hurt our chances of survival, and then it wasn't right. And so our chances of surviving, 250,000 years ago, um, was better if we all stuck together and we all came together to fight off our natural enemies, and that it made our community stronger. That's how morality evolved within human. It had nothing to do with we evolved or we created a standard of morality long before we created gods and long before we created religions. And so religions and gods just sort of co-opted, stole that was already there. Uh, Sharon said, two of my siblings are critical to me leaving religion, but I live my life closer to the quotes they spew. Absolutely, Sharon. It's just, I'm sorry, just my nose is itching. That is exactly what I'm saying. We live closer to the things that they talk about more so than they do. And I'll give you an example. And I know he's not listening to this channel because this is completely anti who he is. But I won't even say. Let me just say this: my wife and I know somebody that we know really really close, and this guy is just very devout believer. But he's in a world that leads to temptation. I mean, his vocation, the work that he does, leads to that. And the other day, he was on the internet just crying and boohooing about issues and this God is gonna fix it for him and all of this. And I showed my wife and I said, "Listen, this sucker has done all this to himself. He's been unfaithful in his relationships and his marriages, plural. And he was actually apologizing for being dishonest to his new wife uh, while he was crying on Instagram. And I said, but you this godly, you talk about how much God sent you this woman and you love her and she's the greatest thing in the world and y'all faith and y'all religion together and y'all grow in God and this and God that. But you're still doing this to yourself because you're doing things that are immoral, right? So it's one of those things, Sharon. So it's just crazy. Uh, so again, I asked the question: why are people still attending church? Because I mean, it's two different things. Like I know believers, devout people, who don't attend church anymore, and some of it is because of the hypocrisy that you see from pastors and in the church. Some of it just is not convenient; they just don't like it, but they're still believers. So you got that on one hand. A lot of people have started, especially during COVID, has started to watch religious programs on television and they realize that, hey, I don't necessarily need to go to a physical building. I can do what I do here. Um, and candidly, for me, I think that as a non-believer, as an atheist, I think that is the doorway to them at least starting to question their faith. I do, not for all of them, but for some, because there is something that just not it's not sitting right with them when they're in church. That's what I believe. And I wrote about this in my graduate thesis. And so I think we getting some of that. But then you do have the people who have completely, not only left church, but left the faith, left whatever faith that they're in. But there's still many who, they're still believers, whether they go to church or not. My mother-in-law is one of them. She hasn't been in church in 15 years, but she's a diehard believer. Ironically, though, my wife is sort of exposing her to other spiritual practices and other spiritual ways to think. My wife has introduced her to different definitions of what she may think God is or higher power. Right? Initially, my mother-in-law was very reluctant and rejecting of it, but I think she started to sort of see what my wife is talking about. So my wife and I, we have these discussions. My wife is I hate to use the word spiritual. My wife is sort of is spiritual, but hers is sort of a universal nature, within you type thing, where I'm just completely done with all of it. Although, I mean, I do meditate, but it's about me going inward. Um, and I don't really understand. I don't really know or make any claims about what's out in the universe and all that kind of stuff. What I do is say that I do not believe in any gods that we know of, because there's not been enough evidence to make me a believer anymore, even though I was for 40 years. But anyway, so again, people, why are they still believers? Why are they still going to church? Why are they still believers? I think a large part of it is the fear of going to hell. Because I've had conversations with people who said to me, "Well, if I'm wrong, I lose nothing. But if you're wrong, you burn in hell." And my response to them is, if your God is everything that you say he is, then you cannot pretend to believe. You either believe or you don't. Pascal's wager doesn't make sense. Uh, According to their belief, God knows the heart. And on the flip side of that, as a non believer, I couldn't make myself believe if I wanted to because I don't. And so, yeah, Sharon said, I changed when I realized that church religion was paralyzing my growth with fear of what the Bible says. That is very powerful, Sharon. That is very, very powerful. So when I talk about people not living their authentic life, that is a part of it. Um, from the most mundane thing, like I tell the story time about a friend of ours that we had back in the day at the church, who was concerned and stressed and worried that she had eaten too many peanuts. And I'm not exaggerating. She thought that eating too many peanuts or eating too much of anything was sort of a blasphemous toward God, and she went into this whole big thing about that. I have another friend who um, who literally beat herself up. We had a friend, a good friend of ours, a couple of years ago, who passed away. He was Muslim, but he was had been married to a Christian, and they had gotten divorced and been divorced for a while. But this other person, the neighbor, knew both of them. And when she found out that the person had died and that he was a Muslim when he died, she really beat herself up because she was like, I can't believe that I didn't convert him. I can't believe that I let him die and go to hell. I can't. And she was going on and on. And my wife and I was like, what the? And so you do have that. And so it does paralyze your growth and fear. Without that, you're able to be open. You're able to pursue some things. I know people. My wife would tell you. We know people we had this one lady who said, I have this great idea for a book, and I really want to write this book, but I'm waiting for God to tell me when to write it. And it was just like, no, what are you? So yeah, so there's this fear. It paralyzes your growth. It keeps you from trying things. It keeps you from experiencing things, even from the standpoint of who you decide to have friends with. Or be friends with. I have friends who are of all persuasions, um, all religious beliefs and non-beliefs, and all sexuality. Right. And so what I've learned is that as a Christian, like many of you, when I was a Christian, we sort of like, yeah, I can't be friends with somebody in the the LGBTQ community. I can't be friends with a trans person. But I have some very rich and robust relationships and friendships with people in that community. They are fantastic people. The only difference is that who they choose to sleep with or who they choose to love. Like for all of us, it's just the difference is who we choose to love. And so, with that out of the way, I've been able to grow in that area. Being open to, I mean, I remember my wife would tell me when she was Muslim and then she converted to Christianity. She was so deep into the church. So there was a period of years where she only listened to religious music, no secular music. And then once she got out of it and started going back, and she was like, this was a fantastic album. I've never heard this song. How did I miss all of that? So those are just sort of the small, mundane things. But some of the larger stuff is your growth, your experience, places that you need to go, things you need to do, that a belief system stops you from doing. And so again, we grow and we learn. And so when I talk about being your authentic self, that's what I'm talking about. Getting out of religion. Stop allowing religion to dictate who you are, where you go, what you do, because it's just not that important to me, to us. So thank you, Sharon, for that. That makes a whole lot of sense. There's the obedience thing. Church teaches us we're indoctrinated and that we should be obedient to the church, to the religion, and we shouldn't ask questions. Um, that is what started me because I was like, a lot of stuff doesn't make sense. But I can't ask questions. When I ask questions, I don't get the answers. So let me start doing the research myself. And I think that is one of the things that starts a lot of people down the road of deconversion. Um, and obviously, there's the desire to go to heaven. This promise that we will be in this great land. My mother always talks about this all the time. We talk about this all the time about going to heaven and it being perfect and no pain and no issues and no drama and all this other stuff. I'm like, but this God you created, well, why couldn't that be the case down here? So a lot of people are still believers because they want to go to heaven. But from a psychological standpoint, it's deeper than that. It is humanity collectively not being willing to to accept that when they die, that may be it. We as a collective humanity, it is difficult for us to accept that we won't be able to see our loved ones again, and that when we're gone, we're done. But if you think about it, unless you believe in reincarnation, um, before you was born, you don't you didn't exist. There was nothing. You don't remember. There was nothing before I could. My earliest memories. I was born in 1969, and I know 1968. I wasn't around. And so that in my belief, I believe that's going to be the same thing when you die. It's going to be just like you wasn't. This is going to be just like before you were born. And so it is hard for us to accept that we've lived this life, and in a relatively short minute it's gone, and that it's almost narcissistic, to think that in a short minute your life is gone and that you are completely gone. There's nothing else. You are done. Only memories from people who may remember you, and eventually they're going to be dead, and no one is ever going to remember who you were ever. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to accept. And you're not going to be in heaven with your friends and your family and all of that. I think that's difficult for people to accept. Again, church for a lot of people. We talked about this earlier. With Sharon had mentioned it. It is a habit. It is cultural. It is social. Sometimes we go to church because this is what we believe. This is what we're supposed to do. This is what we have always done. This is what people in our community do, people around us. It's something we've always done. So, I get up Sunday morning, go to church. And so that's one me. And same thing with believing. I think there's a segment of people out there who really don't believe, but then they believe because they don't know anything else. And they believe because they think this is what they're supposed to do. The worst thing in the world, like I've always said, you can get grace or forgiveness, especially in the African American community, for anything. I mean, you can rape somebody, kill somebody, murder somebody. There is always going to be somebody who's willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, to willing to say that this was just a bad day, willing to give you grace, with the exception of you coming out saying, "I'm a non-believer, I'm an atheist." That's where they draw the line. There is no grace given to the non-believer, to the atheist, to the agnostic in the Black community. None. It's done. Um, and so a lot of people still engage in these activities and still say that they're a believer. Again, as someone mentioned earlier, Salem Help, I believe, mentioned it, that they don't want to be ostracized. I mean, you lose so much. You're like kicked out. You become an outcast, for many people. Sharon said, "I've always questioned and was told that I just want to debate the Bible, but I refuse to question. I refuse to question it. I refuse to be a cult member blindly following." And Sharon, here's the thing: we are so bad about receipts for this and receipts for that. As we say, we want proof, we want evidence for everything, right? Everything except our belief system. We don't care for the evidence. We just blindly follow and blindly believe because it's been indoctrinated in us since birth. And the defense mechanism for that is you can't question. If you question, there is something wrong with you. You are being blasphemous. You are going against God by questioning. And so that is built into it. And we don't understand that, but that is built into it. And so, yeah, it's one of those things. And so, I don't know about you guys, but what I have seen, especially on platforms like TikTok, and Threads, where I think more of the younger people frequent, I have seen more young people, especially people of color, questioning their faith. I see them openly challenging religion and Christianity and Islam, in particular. I see them asking the hard questions. I see them saying the things that, even for me and somebody in my generation, because we grew up, even if you later become a non-believer, there's still a bit of reverence, for the faith, and there's a bit of reverence for God and Jesus, even if you're no longer a believer. Um, but these people have none of that. They either wasn't raised like that, and that's a good thing. So they're freer and they're more open to question it without feeling that they are hurting someone's feelings or being blasphemous or whatever. There is zero reverence. for any faith, and I love it. And so I'm seeing a lot more of that on some of these other platforms. Like I said, Threads and TikTok are the two that I'm on that I'm seeing more of this on. So yeah, so absolutely, certainly appreciate that. I want to jump to the added topic that I wanted to talk about, and I sort of set the stage for it earlier when I talked about it. So to make a long story short, we talked about the NAACP is asking that athletes, black athletes, stop attending the major universities down south in lieu of what's going on with the redrawing of district maps, phasing out black representation by black representatives in both the state houses and national Congress. Um, so I saw that it came across my Facebook feed, and I made a post, and to paraphrase it, what I basically said was, this is an incredible, difficult ask to do of these young people who have worked so long and so hard to get to the point where they want to attend these universities. And they want to attend these universities for basically for three reasons. Number one is it's university, a lot of these major universities, those of you who live down south understand how this is religion. They grew up cheering for these schools, whether it be University of Alabama, University of Tennessee, Georgia, whatever it is. They grew up watching these programs on TV and cheering for these programs. Number two, these programs make promises, and these kids think they're good enough if they get into these schools on athletic scholarship. Many of them believe that they can go pro. And going pro from a financial standpoint changes their lives, changes the lives of their parents and their family members. And if they do it right, generation after generation, right? And the third thing, which is recent, which is newer, is that thanks to NIL, which is name, likeness, name, image, and likeness in college, a lot of these players are being paid while they're playing in college. I'm not talking about just the scholarship and a little pocket change. We're talking six figures and seven figures that these kids are making. So even if they don't go pro and they stay in school for 3, 4 years, they're going to make more money in college than they will make post college for the rest of their lives outside of sports, even if they don't go pro. Some of these kids are making $1 million a year, $2 million a year, $3 million a year in college. Even for a kid that's making $500,000 a year, 4 years, that's $2 million. And so what we're asking, we being the community through the NAACP, what we're asking these kids to do is to give up that. Now, NAACP is saying go to some of these other schools outside of the Southeast and play ball and get the money and all of that. So we can send a message to these states and the universities by sort of hurting their pockets. I said that I think this is a horrible idea. Being is that I don't like putting that kind of pressure on these young people who have worked so hard to do this. Many of these young people go to the local state universities in an effort to for their parents and grandparents and family members to be able to see them play as well. So you take a kid who says, "Well, I want to go to University of Georgia, and I'm good enough. I'm a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star recruit." But I was told by the NAACP that I shouldn't go to Georgia. So I need to go to the nearest, or I need to go to a school that's going to offer me the scholarship and the same kind of NIL money. Well, guess what? Well, let's see. I can't go to the ACC because those are southeastern. There's those schools in the southeast. The south and the southeast as well. Football is not as big, especially when we talk about football. Football is not as big in the Northeast as it is in the South and in the Midwest. So now you got all these kids who, at a minimum, are trying to gravitate to these schools in the Midwest. The Ohio States, the University of Michigan, the Michigan States, the Iowas, Wisconsin, Illinois, those schools in the Midwest. There's only so many scholarships. There's only so many NIL opportunities that are there. So now, do they go further west? Do they come here, UNLV? Do they go to California, USC, UCLA? Do they go to the Northwest, University of Washington, Washington State, those schools, Oregon? Now they're so far away from their parents and loved ones that no one is going to be able to watch them play the game. And so what I said was that this is an incredible ask of us. That it is unfair to these kids and their families to forsake. We're asking them to forego life-changing money because, quite frankly, because people in my generation and older dropped the ball. We failed our community in this aspect. We are still fighting the same battles that my parents and my grandparents and before them were fighting. And here now are what would be literally my grandkids from an age standpoint, um, almost, almost in a sense. Could I have grandkids that young? I guess I probably could if I started really, really early. But anyway, we're asking two generations later to fight the same battle, and I just don't think it's fair. We didn't do what we're supposed to be, what we should have done. Give granted, there are all kind of reasons for it, and so how does this tie indirectly into what we talk about here on this channel? Well, we understand that a lot of these decisions in these states that are made by racist individuals, people who want to keep their culture, their Southern white culture. Politicians who are embracing that, politicians who are at the direction of your current president, President Trump, are doing these things, and his information and instructions are coming from people like Stephen Miller, who is a known racist, one of the architects of Project 2020, what is it, 2025. Um, but how they are able to stay afloat and move with this is that they are tying it to um, being a Christian for many right wingers in the South. It is being tied to that white supremacy, the sort of Christian, Judeo-Christian way. All of this is tied directly and indirectly to religion, to being the right Christian, to assimilating, and so that's the connection. Without, I tell people all the time, if you watch closely, for many of those people, it has nothing to do with the price of groceries, the price of gas, taxes, whatever. It is simply about inflicting harm and punishment and pain on people who don't look like them. As long as President Trump and others continue to push policies that affect people who don't look like them indirectly, because it does in a sense, but they don't care. They just want to see the pain in the faces of people who don't look like them. So they would deal with the high gas prices and all of the other things that's going on, as long as they hear the same message. And so the politicians are smart. They understand that what drives these people, or what at least gets them excited and grease up the wheels, is talking about this in the context of religion. We just had Sunday. What did we have? We had a day rededication to Christianity at the Capitol in D.C. And people flock to that. People they gravitate, they resonate with that as a way of saying, I must be doing something right because it's right in the eye of God. And they've completely messed that up completely. And they've taken it and they've massaged it to the way that they want it to work. But don't be confused. There is a connection between that and what we see is happening with these redrawing of the districts, because many of the people believe that the Republican platform is about anti-abortion, it's about anti-LGBTQ, anti-trans, and those things are anti-Christian to a lot of these right wingers, and so that's why they're there and they're fighting it. They want to see African Americans and people of color who don't assimilate to their definition of ideal of what Christianity is. They want to see us subjugated to a certain extent. Now, I consider myself to be an independent, and the Democrats are not completely innocent in this either. There are things that they could have done and so forth and so on. So I'm not letting them off the hook either. So there is a connection. And so going back to what I was saying, I just think that it is unfair for us to ask our young people who've worked for the last, 10, 11, 12 years to get to this point where they can go to college, get a free education or go pro or make a lot of money while they're playing. Many of them come from meager means. Many of them have never had nothing, have never had anything. Their family, generations going back, and here's an opportunity for them to help their family and set themselves up in the future, regardless of what you think about what they're going to do with the money, and regardless of the stats. At least let them have that opportunity. And I just think it is wrong of the NAACP to require or to ask those individuals to do that. Now, for those of you who are going to come on the podcast and hear the end part of what I'm saying and talk about that I must be a plant for the right or whatever, check my record. I didn't give a damn about what happens on the right. I hate Trump as much as anybody in the Republican Party, as much as anybody. But I'm just honest and fair about everything that I talk about. And my opposing what the NAACP is doing has absolutely nothing to do with the capitalism in college athletics, right-wing thought, or anything like that. It is simply about the individual, the athlete, the student athlete that has an opportunity to change their life and to do it by doing something that they're great at, something that they love, and something they have dedicated their life to for the last 10, 12 years. And that is all that it is about. I don't expect everyone to agree with me, and I'm good with that. When I posted it on Facebook, I had had the people agree, had the people disagree, but I think that is a great conversation. I also think it's a conversation that we need to have in our community about athletes and entertainers and their influence and the expectations that we have of them, whether or not it's fair or not. And so that is a conversation that we can have at another time. Sharon said, I am torn because oftentimes they have the opportunity, but endure an incredible amount of disrespect that is causing large cases of depression and suicide. What are your thoughts? As I've said on my Facebook page, every point that people who disagree with me make, I didn't disagree with it. I mean, they all make some very valid points. And to your point, Sharon, that point is very valid. However, there have been many people, whether student athletes, whether they play basketball, whether they play baseball, whether they play football, whatever sport they play, there have been many who have been able to change their lives, the lives of the people around them, and they have been able to give back to the community. Even though that may be a relatively small percentage of the people who actually get there, and an even smaller percentage of the people who actually get presented with this opportunity, I think it is an unfair ask. And the way I look at it is that I try to put myself in that situation. I was nowhere even close to being a D1 athlete, zero. However, I did come from a very, very impoverished upbringing. My mother worked multiple jobs. We were without heat in our house. We were without water. We struggled, food. We moved around a ton. My sister and my mother were homeless for a while I was in college. I contemplated dropping out to work to help them. So I come from that side. And so there is no way in hell that if I was an athlete, that a school, University of Alabama, University of Arkansas, Georgia, whatever the state school may be, is saying to me, Willie, here is $1 million a year for you to come to my school and play football, something that you've been doing since you were 6 years old. You are now 18. This $1 million so now my mother has a place to live. My sister has a place to live. We have food. We have everything that we need. There is no way in hell I'm going to turn that down. And now you're telling me, well, you don't have to turn it down. Just go to another school outside of the Southeast. Well, guess what? I want my mother, my sister, my loved ones to have an opportunity to see me play. I want to be close enough to them to where I can still check in on them and check. So why now do I have to go to Wyoming or Idaho or Chicago or Wisconsin or California when I'm right here? There are 30 schools within 3 hours or 4 hours that I can go to. So that's a hard ask, Sharon. That's a hard ask for me. And now I don't. Again, you and others have very very valid points. But I just think that it is unfair. And I know that we had athletes that did it 2 generations ago, the Jim Browns, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars of the world. But number one, we were new in the civil rights thing. Number two, the money was completely different. Many of those athletes, the professional athletes that played ball, basketball, football, baseball, also had jobs in the off season because they didn't make that much. So those are the two things that are different. And finally, we've been fighting this battle for 3 generations now. And so we fail our kids if they have to make that kind of sacrifice to still fight these battles that we've been fighting for, 3 generations plus. It is hard for me to see this, and it is hard for me to see a young athlete that we're saying, listen, I know you grew up rooting for Alabama or Georgia or Tennessee or Arkansas or South Carolina, North Carolina, Ole Miss, Florida, Florida State, but for the good of the collective community. I know you're a 4-star or 5-star athlete, and I know these schools are promising you, $1 million a year to come to their school and play. But we're asking you for the collective community. We want to prove a point. Yeah, I know your family's struggling, but we want you to go to school in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, eventually Oklahoma is gonna do the same thing. Oklahoma's still in the same boat. So you got to go out further. You got to go. So we want you to go to Illinois or Iowa or USC or Colorado State, and play ball. Michigan, and so you're going to compete with everybody else that we're asking to leave the Southeast for these NIL deals and the scholarships, knowing that there's those scholarships and those NIL deals are limited. So if you got 50 students, 50 students athletes, 50 student athletes at a school vying for these in whatever level, vying for NIL money. And it's not that many because NILs they're not paying everybody on the team. But for the 5-star athletes, let's say it's 10 of them per team, 10, 15 at most per school. Now you say all of the athletes that would have gone to the SEC schools and the ACC schools and throw them out there as well. That's not enough money, and it's not enough spaces. It doesn't work. So I think that is a hard ask, and that's what I said in my post. And I know people are torn, and I see both sides. I understand both sides. At the end of the day, I do think that at a minimum, it is a conversation that our community need to have. There are so many stories out there about our athletes who become go pro, and family and friends, emotionally drain them, financially drain them, and they use guilt. You owe us, you owe the community, you owe the family, you owe friends, and that is a burden that is unduly placed on people, young people who quite honestly are not having reached the level of maturity that they need to be at in order to deal with these things. And we see many of them have just completely left the community. They've chosen different partners. They've chosen to live in different places because of that. In part, they've severed relationships with family members and friends because of that. So that may be a conversation that we need to have community wide. But I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. That is pretty much all that I wanted to say on that topic. I mean, I could say more, but we are at an hour. I try to keep it at an hour or under. I know we all have short attention spans. We don't. I'm not ever wanting to do 2, 3, 4 hours unless it's in a different context and a different setup. But yeah. So thank you all, Sharon. Say little helpers, certainly appreciate it. I don't know if this is your first time, but thank you. I don't think it's your first time, but thank you anyway for being here. Let's see who else. Who else do we have? Amanda, thank you as well. Sharon, get better, feel better. Michael Lachey, 9714, thank you. Amanda, like I said before, thank you. All of you and all the rest of you who did not make a comment but were listening, thank you so much. For those of you who would tune in later, leave me a comment. I certainly thank you so much. All of them, appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate that, Sharon. Yeah, it was good. I think it was a great conversation. We touched on a lot of things. Feel free to leave me a comment. You don't have to agree. I don't want everybody to agree. There's no fun in that. I don't grow. I don't learn if everybody agree. And so yeah, so let's do that. But enjoy your time. Summer's about to start, so enjoy. Be safe. I'm out here in Vegas. It's 90-some degrees today, but it's going to go back down to 80. Then it'll hit triple digits for a long time. But that's fine. I don't like storms. So those of you who are in the middle of the country, you guys, or down south, you guys are still getting storms and tornadoes and all that kind of stuff. Please be safe. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Right.